Good morning to everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. We're just going to wait a few minutes more to allow the rest of the participants to join, and then we'll get started. We appreciate your patience. Hello, good morning. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the activity submission process webinar. We have a lot to cover today, so let's dive in. First of all, we would like to share with you um, um, some things to keep in mind. So this is a new RMRP. So this is a new plan. And this is the opportunity to everyone to submit activities for 2 years. So this plan will cover year 2025 and year 2026. Also, something else to be very aware is that regional sectors have updated the monitoring framework. We are going to see this in a bit more of detail. And please, everyone can use this opportunity to be part of the RMRP. And please spread the words since new partners are always welcome. For the logistics, we ask you to use the Q&A section of the webinar or the chat to ask questions. At the end, we are going to have a Q&A session and a recorded version of this webinar and the PowerPoint presentation, as well as a summary of the questions and answers, will be available on our web resources page. Okay. So to start the process, it's always good idea to have a big view of the big process, the big picture, how this works. So we are having a plan for 2 years, and this plan is being informed by the RMRP is being informed by two small processes that are the RMNA. The first one is the RMNA that we will be launching soon in September. And the next one, it's going to be around September 2025. And well, these are the plans, or these are the documents that will inform the plan. So in these documents, we calculate the number of people in need that this is going to be used to calculate or work the planning for each partner. So this is information that we have always to consider before submitting our activities. For every activity that we are going to submit, we need to take a deep look on the numbers that we have of people in need. This is very important to keep in mind, and we're going to see this. How does this work when we fill the Excel template for the activity submission? Well, for the next slides, I'll pass the floor to Philip. Where to you, Philip?
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Today, as you may know, is the second of these webinars to provide an update to all current and potential future partners of the new Refugee Migrant Response Plan for 2025 and 2026. In addition to the points that were already highlighted by George and that you will be learning more about in this webinar, maybe in a nutshell, no big changes. So nothing to worry about. And for those colleagues and partners who have been part of the response plan currently or in past years, it's largely business as usual. Where there is a change is what we're going to talk about right now. And that is when we talk about the scope of the response plan. What is not changing is the assistance that is required and that many of you will be providing over the coming years for refugees and migrants in destination. Venezuelans in destination in all 17 countries of the R4V response. The same goes for affected host communities, as you can see on all 17 countries here identifiable on the map. Next. Where we have seen a small change, or where we'll be implementing a small change going forward, concerns those engaging in onward and transit movements. It is no secret that over the last years, the population movements have picked up, have become a hallmark of the region, and that they do not only involve Venezuelan nationals. And it's for that reason that already 2 years ago, in 6 countries of the region, it was implemented that not only Venezuelans, but all of those engaging in these onward and transit movements would be part of the response plan. Right now, in Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, Panama, and Costa Rica, R4V partners are assisting through the RMRP all of those engaging in these onward and transit movements. In a way, that was a pilot, and that pilot also allowed partners to report and to fundraise for what they're already doing. Based on our humanitarian principles, we assist people on the basis of their needs, not on the basis of a passport or a nationality. So if someone arrives at a comedor or a dormitorio or at any other facility, they are assisted and not asked for their nationality. However, that implies that partners are implementing for a broad range of nationalities without being able to fundraise for them if it is not an open plan, if it is not an open and purely needs-based plan. Therefore, to reconcile that expenditure and that fundraising and planning component of the plan, this openness has now been expanded to the entire South American continent, including Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay, Argentina, and Chile, meaning there is no more requirement to distinguish between Venezuelans, Chileans, Haitians, Cubans, Chinos, Bangladeshis, or any other nationality that has to engage in these dangerous onward and transit movements. And in this respect, please take notice of the definition of in transit. We're using in transit here because it's short and sweet, but in transit does not necessarily mean like at the airport that you come in here and you go out there. It can also imply an initial arrival or an onward movement for an individual who has been spending some time, for example, in Argentina, and who owed to the local socioeconomic context is unable to sustain and is therefore moving onward to another host country. Simplified, cross-border movements for all nationals. As concerns those engaging in pendular movements, as well as returnees from Venezuela, not to Venezuela, but from Venezuela, i.e. Colombian returnees, these two population types remain applicable in Colombia. That is really the only notable change for this current and new planning process. And if there are any questions on that, feel free to approach Johan and me directly about it. And feel free to liaise with your colleagues in countries that have already been implementing this approach for the last 2 years for any operational or otherwise changes. Just to clarify, we do not require in the planning or at the monitoring stage a disaggregation. How many Venezuelans will you be assisting? How many Cubans? How many Haitians? No, that's not necessary and that is not reasonable. Maybe with that, I pass back to the team to continue with the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Philip. And now coming back to the presentation, well, most of the resources that we're going to talk about here, it's going to be like the planning instructions, the Excel template, as well as the video of this webinar are going to be hosted in our key resources webpage in r4v.info. To get into it, you have to go through the upcoming plan link. And if you scroll down, you will find all the important information that we're going to talk about today. So following on this, maybe a good idea to have a look on the timeline. And if, well, this webinar is intended for appealing partners. And as you can see in the timeline, we have this very important activity, that's the activity submission. And it's going to be open from the 5th of September until the 22nd. So you will have this time frame to submit your activities. We're going to tell you how, but it's a very simple process. It just takes your time to fill a couple of COBO forms, as well as filling up the Excel template for the activity submission. So after this 22nd of September, we have like 2 main tasks after this. Well, one of those is the activity validation, and the activity validation goes through all the activities that you have submitted, and these are going to be checked at regional and at national level to see for consistency. And also with those activities, after those activities have been reviewed or validated, we use that information to calculate the target that's going to be used for monitoring the next RMRP. So something to keep in mind in this process is that we have to pay a lot of attention into the quality control and to try to not to change the formats that we are sharing with you guys, basically the Excel template submission form. So going a little bit more into the details on what or how the process is, you have it now in your screen. It's the step-by-step process is it's a 5-step process. The first one is downloading the Excel template from the R4B web page, as it was mentioned in the previously. You go into the key resources page, and in the bottom, you are going to find a link to download the Excel template. Well, the next step is to fill the activity submission template. And also, you need to go through the GAM, the gender and age marker, that it's a Kobo tool that needs to be pre-filled before you go into our Kobo form for the activity submission. Also, in our activity submission form, well, we have some questions regarding accountability to affected population, something else from protection and sexual exploitation. So basically, when you are in the online Kobo form, the R4B one, there you have to fill information regarding the identification of the organization, and there you will be able to upload the Excel file. And as I said, this process is going to be open from the 5th to the 22nd of September. And finally, we're putting out the dashboard where we can track the progress of the activity submission. And also, when you submit your activities in the Kobo form, you have to fill out your email. And this email, you have to fill it very carefully, because this is the one we're going to be using to send you a confirmation email. So this is very important to look before sending the form to check if the email was correctly spelled. So going into the Excel template, this is the first sheet of the Excel template where you can fill all the details regarding your organization. So here you can fill the country, the name of the billing organization, if you have a name in Spanish, the acronym, and the organization type, as well as the focal point name and focal point email. This is very important since we are going to use this information for the activity validation process. This is how we are going to get in contact with each organization focal point in case we need to have some feedback. Yeah, diving a little bit more in, here is a screenshot of the activity sheet of the Excel template. Since this is a new RMRP, you can fill in the year column, you can fill data for each year. In this case, it's 2025 and 2026. Yeah, something else that to be aware of is that it's not possible to present activities with multiple countries or multiple partners. And as I said before, please do not change the format of the Excel file and the drop-down list and all the validations that we have there, since this is going to ease the process of activity consolidation as well as the data quality processes. So now let's dive in and take a look into the Excel template in more detail. So if you go into our webpage, you are going to download this Excel file. It has five sheets. One is the first one that I showed you, the instruction sheet, the instructions where you can fill the information about your organization. But the most important here is the activity sheet. Here, for every column, you have a drop-down list that you can use to start placing your inputs So here, for example, now I'm going to fill one row of the table, and here you have a list of all the countries that are part of the R4V. Now you can also select up to admin one, and here you have a list of the organization's name. So we are trying to fill it up with the names of the all organizations that are sharing data with us via the 5Ws and the monitoring of the RMRP. So we believe this is a complete list, but anyhow, if you don't find your organization name, you can fill here with new organization. And after that, um, you need to look for the sector and indicator that you are going to do your activity that's linked with your activity. So in this case, I'm going to choose for sector education, for example, and I'm going to choose an activity that is directed to refugees and migrants. So in this case, each activity or each indicator that you choose have an indicator type. So depending on this indicator type, this makes some columns in the template to be available to input data in. So if you want to know exactly how this indicator type works and which columns you should report in, you can go into this indicator type sheet. And here you have a schema where you can see which type of indicator that we have here needs to fill or needs data for the other fields. For example, in the case of the direct assistance, we are looking to beneficiaries, refugees and migrants, for a population type. And our population types, as Philippe explained in the beginning, are in destination, in transit, affected host communities, pendulars, and Colombia returnees. And also we are looking at the age and gender disaggregation. So for example, if you are choosing an indicator that it's of type campaign, we are only looking for the quantity of outputs. Let's say how many campaigns are you planning, and the total beneficiaries. In the case of capacity building, we are looking for the number of courses that you're going to give and the total beneficiaries. Something that it's optional, it's filled here with yellow color, and you can see, for example, for capacity building, the age and gender disaggregation, it's optional. And in the last case, the infrastructure, mechanism, advocacy, and other type of indicators, we're only looking for the quantity of output, and it's not optional, but you can report the total beneficiaries. So coming here, back to the activity sheet, if you remember, we just chose a direct assistance indicator. In the next two columns, we have to enter a title for the activity. I'm just going to type activity one, and activity description, same, activity description. Yeah. Next two columns, here we're looking to the modality, if this is going to be in kind or it's going to be implemented via CVA. You have to type here the budget in US dollars. I'm going to put some numbers here. Yeah, and you can see this in the column M. This is being calculated automatically. Finally, we come to the beneficiaries part, and you can see there is some cells that are colored in yellow, and these are the cells that we need to be data inputted in. So in this case, we are looking for a target for refugees and migrants in destination, and refugees and migrants in transit, affected host communities, pendular, and returnees. So here I'm just going to make it a number, let's say 500 in destination and 500 in transit. And these two are adding up to 1,000 people. So with this, I have most of the work done. But as we remember, if we go back here, we, as it is direct assistance, we also need to tell the disaggregation by age and gender, sorry. And here we have to tell out of these 1,000 persons, how many are girls, boys, women, and men. And let's say we're going to work with 500 girls, 500 boys, and that's it. We have all the data points input acquired, and you can see here the validation is good. Also, something that we implemented this year is a validation for the budget. So if you don't have a budget, this is required. So we have here a hint to ask you to review budget. I'm going to work on another type of indicator and we'll move on. Let's say this is for capacity building. And in capacity building, as you see here, you have all these black cells. This is for the beneficiaries, population types that we don't need to report in this case. But here we are asking for a total beneficiaries of this training. Let's say we have 50 persons. And here it is also asking for the total number of trainings. Let's say we're going to train 50 people in 2 sessions. And you have here as an optional to put the age and gender breakdown. So mainly this is how the Excel form works. And if you have questions at the end of these sessions, we're happy to help. Now I pass the floor to Fernanda. Over to you, Fernanda.
Hello, good morning, everyone. So now that we have looked into the template, I'm going to discuss a little bit about other resources that you can find useful in this process. Also, in the key resources page, you will find the monitoring framework dashboard, which is this image that is shown in your screen now. You have you have output indicators and also the indicators types that were just explained by George. You also have the outcome indicators, which are more like medium-term, long-term impact. And then we have the same Excel per activity submission template, which is exactly the same as George was showing you. You can download the full monitoring framework in that lower part of the dashboard. And each one of these sections will guide you or take you to a different sheet where you can find all the information and filter for the sector you are interested in. Please make sure that you look into these indicators before you start filling up the Excel so that you can identify which indicator better matches your activity. It's super important that you have at least one indicator because we cannot accept activities that do not have a corresponding indicator. As you know, we do need to monitor the assistance that we provide, and hence we required having these indicators. Next. You will also find in this dashboard a summary of the different indicators. So then the next slide, please. So you can find here the same table that was being presented by George, and also on the bottom you can find the cross-cutting indicators, which was a change this year that we did in order to have a more comparability between sectors, because before we had like different small differences between indicators that prevented us from doing a comparative and regional analysis. So now, for example, when we talk about capacity building, We have a number of government employees trained or humanitarian development workers and society actors trained in all sectors. So everyone, these indicators are available in each one of the sectors, and we just have small differences in the descriptions that are adjusted or customized for the need of the sector, but the actual indicator name is the same, and you can find this here. So these are 9 indicators that are cross-cutting. We have 1 in campaign, 4 in capacity building, 3 in mechanism and advocacy, and in the case of other, we just have 1, which is the number of guidelines, standards, and tools developed to support and strengthen the response. And as you can see, these indicators are very broad so that it can cover and that it can work also for the different sectors. So now we can go to the next slide. And this is also resources that we have prepared and that the different sectors and working groups have worked on to support the process. So for example, there is also available in the our key resources page, the protection guide on indicators and activities for this planning cycle. And you can find there more information on the actual indicator and examples of activities that are aligned with these type of monitoring indicators. Similarly, in the case of nutrition, the sector has been working on a guide that is upcoming and that we will be publishing in the next couple of days. But it's really good if you are, as an organization, if you have nutrition activities, we would encourage you to look at the guide before submitting your activities so you can have a better idea of which indicators work better in your case. Additionally, this year, we published together with the CV Cash Working Group, we published this just a one-pager on the key definition on cash and voucher assistance delivery mechanisms. In this case, we have more than we had before, and we have it in both languages, English and Spanish, so that the partners can select the one that is more appropriate for the assistance they are providing. So we have, for example, the beneficiary bank account. We have also mobile money, prepaid cards, cash collection over the counter, or also known as OTC. We have direct cash or cash in hand, cardless ATM withdrawal, and voucher. And out of these different mechanisms, in the case of mobile money, direct cash, cardless ATM withdrawal, and voucher, all of these definitions are fully aligned with the CALP glossary. And we have the link here in case you want to take a look. But basically, this is a network of humanitarian organizations and NGOs that work to provide assistance, guidance, and have global standards in regards to cash delivery. So it's very good also that this year we are being aligned in all these definitions. And yes, and we are going to leave you the link in the chat so that you can also download. It's a very simple one-pager, even with some icons that can help you better understand. So now to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is the COBO submission form. And I'm gonna project my screen because I think it's easier that you can see it directly. How does that work? Where we have also a video. Let me just project quickly. Okay, so now we are here in the R4B website, and you can see that the COBO form is embedded in the site. You can also change the language. We have it in Portuguese, Spanish, and English. And the form has very general information at the beginning. For example, country is if you are submitting a regional activity, you can select regional. If not, please just select a specific country. And then you will have the list of organizations that are traditionally partners in that country. So you can select it from here. Or if it is a new organization that is not in the list, you can click Other and just type the name of the organization here. And similarly, the type of the organization is here. So you can select which is the type that better matches your organization. Then you can include your contact name here and your email. And this should match the information that was provided in the Excel template, because this is going to be the focal point person where all questions will be directed, especially during the validation process. You know that many times exchanges are needed or just clarifications. So it's key that the person that is included here is someone that is able to either respond the questions directly or redirect the potential questions that can come up in the validation process. And now the next field is, I would say, the most important one, because it's where you have to upload the submission Excel that George was just showing you. So basically, you just click here in that section, and then you will select the Excel template with all the information complete and upload it. So in this case, it's too large because we have a lot of information, but you will be able to upload it as here directly in the common form. Then the sectors, this is also key that you select either the sector or the working group that you are working on, because some of the questions, especially in the environmental marker, are dependent on the sectors. So for example, if we select here WASH and education, then you would see how some questions will appear. After this, we have the gender and age marker, which as in previous years, it works through a separate form. It's also a COBO form, and this case is hosted in the OCHA server. And you can see here that it's completely separate. You can start filling up all the information required. And at the end, once you finish this, you will get a reference number and an overall GAM code. And that's what we would request you to complete here. So here the reference code and here the number. So we will, on the GAM specifically, I'm not going to give you more details at this point, because next week we will have a special webinar only focused on the GAM provided by our colleagues from UN Women. So we will be sending the invitation shortly, and we will include also the link here in the chat so that you can mark it in your calendars. Additionally, we have some questions, as in previous years, related to accountability to affected populations and protection from sexual exploitation and abuse that you will need to complete. The questions are quite general and easy to understand. So it's basically how much are these considerations being taken into account in the planning cycle and of the activity and the response. So you can select either yes, no, partially, not applicable. And similarly, we have some questions specific to centrality of protection, COP. For example, if the activities address existing barriers to access assistance and enjoyment of rights. All of these questions, same with yes, no, partially, and not applicable. And then after you have completed this part, you will see the environmental marker self-assessment questionnaire. And this is the one that is depending on the sectors you selected that I was just explaining. So for example, in this case, we chose WASH, and then we will have specific questions on whether environmental impact assessment or considerations are being included in the planning. So you will see the questions that are related to WASH and environment here. And similarly, as we selected education, you will also see some specific questions on how this environmental and climate change awareness is being included in the modules in the education lessons, for example. So after you have completed all the form, the last thing to do is just to click submit. And once submitted, you will receive a confirmation email from our Gmail account with platform R4B at Gmail. So you can be sure that everything was properly submitted and complete. If you have not received it, please check your spam folder because sometimes it goes directly to there. So with that, I will stop sharing so we can go back to the PowerPoint slides. Okay. So now, okay, so I'm just gonna answer Regina's question because it's related to the cover form. We can also upload in our key resources site just a printed or PDF version of all the questions, because yes, I think it would be very useful so that people have it beforehand. So thank you for the suggestion, Regina. Okay, so once this process is over, and if you recall what George was saying, is that the activity submission is going to be open on the launch of the RMRP, which is the 5th of September, up until the 22nd of September. So that's the period that you and all partners have to submit their activities. After that, the information is going to be consolidated by our national and regional IM teams. And then we have the validation of activities process, which happens from the 25th of September to the 9th of October. So this is very strict timelines. So please mark them also in your calendars, as this is a process that require questions and especially the involvement of national sectors, but also regional sectors. And especially when we don't have national sectors focal points in some countries, like sometimes in the Caribbean or in Central America, then regional sectors take over that task of doing the validation. So the validation is not anything complex. It's basically going through a set of criteria with this panel that you ask whether or not the activities that are being submitted comply with these requirements or criteria. So we have these 7 here, and we will also have it available in an application. And in this case, the first one is very simple. It's just if the activity contributes to the sector objectives. If you are unsure of what is the sector objective, well, you can look at it in the monitoring framework we already included over there. But yeah, basically it's just, are we working towards the same goal? The second one is, can the activity expected results be achieved within the corresponding time frame? So in 2025 or 2026 or in both years. Then we have the question, is there any duplication with other activities? And this is also very important because, as you know, a big part of what we do as part in the framework of the platform is to coordinate and try to use the resources in the most efficient way. So if the panels identify that there is a potential duplication, then this is something that needs to be discussed and to understand if there is any way to have like a synergy or some kind of collaboration to use to work together and use these resources more efficiently. Then we have the fourth criteria is the submitting organization part of the relevant national or sub-regional platform. This is not exclusion, but it's something important to take into account, especially because if it is a new organization, then you may want to have a better understanding on the nature of the work that is being done and request a little bit more details. Then does the activity have a realistic funding requirements or budget? And is the target within the sectoral PIN? And this is usually the trickiest criteria, because in some cases we have activities that are very ambitious and where the targeted population is even higher than the people in need. So when we identify these cases, then the target, of course, needs to be revised because it has to be always lower than the people in need estimate. And then the last criteria is more open for the sector to determine whether or not it's necessary to include an additional point of consideration. So this is the summary of the process of the criteria. And now George is going to explain a little bit more on how will this work in practical terms. So that's it. Over to you, George. Thank you.
Gracias, Fer. Okay. So for the quality assurance and quality control, we are always looking to be compliant on what we asked in the Excel template. So for this, as we know, Excel is very fragile and can um, can be prone to mistakes because normally the rules that someone define over the Excel file can be broken sometimes. So for this, we also have, for this situation, we also have this tool for quality assurance and quality control, where you will be able to paste all your activities in a text window. And after that, you can check if all your activities are compliant or not. Let's give it a try. So this is the tool. And you have two tabs. Thank you. The one is for English and the other one is for Spanish. And we're going to use the same Excel file we already built. I'm going to copy here some data. And I am going to make by purpose a mistake. Let's say here 600. The Excel file is already telling me that I'm having this problem, but let's say we have everything green. We're super happy that we have all our lines in the table good, but we need to go and check. So for this, we need to copy all the data that we have inputted in our table without the headers. So this is the thing. I'm going to copy this data and I'm going to paste it. Always paying attention that I have to be in the English tab. So after this, we click on import data. And we will be able to see a report with sorry, I know why it's not working. I have to check it up. But yeah, you can check this information. Let's paste into the Spanish one. And yeah, it's working. I need to take a look why the English one is not working. So here you have what is missing, and then you can download also this file and check what's happening with your data and fix it back. So this is one of the tools that we have prepared for you to get all the quality assurance of the process. Well, so I think this is it. We have some space for questions regarding what we just talked. And after this, we are giving the floor to Julia, who is going to talk about the environmental marker for this year. So you can raise your hand and put it in the chat, the question. Okay, well, I see no questions. So we pass to Julia. Julia?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you, George and colleagues. Yeah, I'm going to share my presentation. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we
Okay,
can.
great. Okay. Hello, everyone. Today I'm briefly going to illustrate the new environmental marker for this year. And I'll start by explaining briefly the before and after. So what's new in the approach we are going to use for environment. And the second point is related to two case studies that I'm going to present. And the last one is for sharing with you some resources. So about the before and after. The questionnaire that has been provided for the previous year about the environment was related and used the humanitarian principle of the do no harm approach. So we all knew that the humanitarian operation can affect the environment, and you can find here a definition for the programs according to the Sphere handbooks. So the program should minimize the environmental impact and consider how their activity can protect or degrade the environmental further. So we always include environmental consideration in our plans and operation according to this principle. So our pillars, our guidelines are the ones that, for example, every agency and every organization already has that are related to the environmental safeguarding policies, can be the ones for UNHCR, the ones for IUM, the ones for Save the Children, and so on. So every agency has a minimum requirements for to no harm. We already have, of course, the guidelines at the global level, and also we already always use the manuals as a guideline. So, for example, the Sphere handbook is one of them. So all these direction always give us guidelines of the minimum requirements to include in our plans and projects in relation to the environment. So the question that you had up to now with the last years, they always refer to, for example, the environmental impact assessment and monitoring. So if you are including this aspect in your project, and the other aspect is related to the minimal sustainable practices, that if you are considering them in your activities. And this approach is the one that we need always to take into consideration, because for us is mandatory actually, and it starts from the humanitarian principle of the do no harm. So what's the news in this case is that in the last year we have seen that the climate-related shocks are becoming more and more intense and frequent. There are shocks that are overlapping in different locations, in different reasons. So actually it's threatening the humanitarian sector's capacity, the government, and on also the donors to respond. We have seen a change in the emergency response, a change in the nature of the emergency response, because crises are becoming more protracted. We can see in our case for the R4V platform. Another change is that we actually don't know the drivers of this plane, because there is a combination of multiple drivers. So it can be climate and conflict that are overlapping and can exacerbate each other. And as Philippe already reported previously, we have a new trend of movement of refugee migrants with also different needs that we had previously. So after showing this reason, we have been developing a new approach that consider humanitarian plans and action aimed at the resilience of the population. So we always see humanitarian action as a possible a cause of environmental damage, but now we can see also environmental humanitarian operation. How can they improve the environmental condition? How can provide human well-being, ecosystem service, and resilience and biodiversity benefits? So also the positive things, how we can do act positively for the environment. So in this case, we are going to make a transition by integrating this new approach that is based on the humanitarian development and peace nexus. So the aim of this approach is to increase the resilience of environment and the community to the hazards and shocks. So here I reported some concept that for someone can be new or not. So the concept of the nature-based solution to build resilience, the concept of the climate change adaptation and mitigation, disaster risk reduction, and the concept of the climate peace and security. So basically, the aim of this approach is to avoid environmental impacts that are mainly associated with the temporary solution that we usually implement during the first phase of the emergency. And it's focused on the wide participatory approach. So it can include, of course, both communities, the displaced and the host communities, the local authorities, community leaders, and etc., and put the stress on the link between the protection and the environment. So the question in this case you are already seen by the email we received. Are integrated the DNOARM approach, because you are also having questions that are referring to the promotion of resilience, the generation of the co-benefits of building resilience for the different populations, and also the approach that it's social inclusive, participatory, and people-centered. This approach is not new. I mean that we are implementing it for the R4V, but it's also the result of a conversation that has been done at the global level in the recent years. So just to report you, DG ECO totally embrace the humanitarian development peace approach. This is the guideline that have been published last year about the minimum requirement for the aid operation, and there is a focus in the first chapters of the guideline that it refers to this nexus. And the idea of this guideline is that the project that we have to create, we have to present, have already a longer term vision. So they are not conceived just for the emergency phase, but the idea is to engage with the development actor. So create this interaction between humanitarian development and peace sector already at the beginning of the humanitarian operation. We can see also this change in the guidelines in the manual. So I already previously mentioned it, the Sphere manual that was our, I can say, Bible for the humanitarian action. And this is a document that has been published also last year as the DG ECO ones, and it refers to the nature-based solution for the climate resilience in humanitarian action. So also in these guidelines, you will find implementation and intervention that go beyond the short term, but works on the longer term. So just to resume, here I'm reporting the kind of the category of question you can find in your questionnaire for the environmental market. So as already mentioned, you will always find DNOARM's questions, so the minimum requirements, because we always have to attain to respect the minimum requirements of the DNOARM. So they are always mandatory. And I just reported two of the questions. They referred to the inclusion of environmental impact assessment and monitoring for the shelter and wash, and regarding, for example, mentioning health, the management of the solid waste is something that we need to consider always, of course. The news in this case are related to the other two categories. So this one, the climate, peace and security, actually this kind of question is referred not to all the sectors, but in particular to protection and the subcategory of protection. So GBV, human trafficking, and the child protection. So this category of question consider how climate change acts in the lens of the climate, peace, and security. So it considers how climate change interacts with conflicts, with inequalities, and with the security dynamics. So the climate change in this case is seen not as the cause of the new conflicts, of the new crisis, but of course is seen as a multiplier effect. So this question refers to consider this analysis in order to not to further contribute on the regional insecurity. The third category that is already news, as I presented, is the one related to the humanitarian development peace nexus. And here, basically, we will find questions that talking a lot about this concept of natural-based solutions. So when we receive the presentation, we always receive resources where you can find all these kind of concepts and information. So it's the first time for you to hear them. So basically, the use of natural-based solution can be declined differently in the sector. So it has different shades of application. In the case of shelter, they can provide a climate adaptative function for the urban settlements and the cities. In the case of nutrition and food security, they can contribute to restore long-term food security and also to create new employment opportunity. In the case of WASH, when we refer to natural-based solution, we talk about the reduction of risk, we talk about disaster risk reduction, and in general, reducing the exposure to natural hazard. And in terms of the integration sector, natural-based solution is an approach that can generate activities that foster social cohesion, social inclusion between the displaced and the host communities. This I just report some example of the question. Okay, so the last part, I'm going to provide two case studies very quickly. So the first one is related to Quito, and the second one to Trinidad and Tobago. So the first one in Quito is regard the urban agriculture as natural-based solution for facing climate change and food sovereignty. So what's happened that in Quito, due to the consequences of climate change and the main issues of food provision and poverty, the municipality of Quito issued a resilience strategy where the food economy was one of the main pillars and was creating a project called the Participatory Urban Agriculture that basically promotes a series of food policies action in the city, and they created an agri-food pact of Quito. So the main object of this initiative of this project was tackling the issue of climate change, the food provision and poverty by creating and supported the urban gardens with wide community participation. So it mainly focused on the healthy and solidarity production, the increase of the food security, the risk management and resilience of the environment, and also the creation of new employment opportunity through the consumption of their own products. So basically this project creates a space for a permanent supply of healthy and educational food, and was able to create employment for different kind of population especially for women, for households, for migrants, refugees, for children with a low schooling participation, and also for the senior citizens. So the main outcome of this project was the creation of around 4,000 gardens in the cities, where every week was produced about 11 tons of food that was delivered in different parts of the cities, especially in the most vulnerable neighborhood. And also, they have a positive impact on the climate change mitigation, because actually the food that was produced and distributed was nearly at kilometer zero. So there was a reduction of the carbon footprint. And also there was an increase of the urban biodiversity, and also the capacities of soil to absorb the water. Here I reported the main sector that was involved, but there are also others. So I just reported the main. And the last project I'm reporting is in Trinidad and Tobago, and it's focused on the use of the vetiver glass properties in the rural communities. So it's called Vetiver Education and Empowerment Project. So basically this local NGO, Young Movement, provided a series of training to the community members on the local level deployment of the vetiver system for the community residing in Paramin. So the main object of this project was to address environmental challenges, so was focused on the resilience by using the benefits of the vetiver plant that I reported here, and you will find in the resources. The outcomes of this project is that the communities could learn how to propagate the vetiver plants that have been planted in 15 properties. There was also produced a brochure for the communities, a documentary film, but most important was created new livelihood opportunities for the community that also improved the living condition of the family and the communities. Connected to this project, there is another one that was born consequently that involved the Venezuelan indigenous Warao migrant women that reside in Trinidad and Tobago that use their capacity, their artistic ability to create handcraft by using the vetiver grass. But it was also an occasion to provide a workshop in order to access protection services and gender-based violence orientation. So during these activities that the women undertook, the organization also provided this workshop in order to empower the women to work on their social integration and to help them to develop a business. So, for example, they're selling these handcrafts in the local market by creating this House of Vetiver, that is the new brand. Okay, so last year I reported some resources where you can find the links of the project, and about this link, hopla.eu. This one is a repository of the nature-based solution from the European Union. You can go to resource project. You will have a map and you can click on different projects around the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Julia, for your presentation. And yeah, we are also opening the chat for questions. So we'll wait a little bit. Mi cámara.
Yes, colleagues, this is your moment to ask questions in case you have any questions or comments. We will be sharing, uploading this webinar session in our key resources page together with the PowerPoint presentation so that you can have it handy. And you can also share with other partners and even potential partners that would be interested in joining for the first time.
Okay, so thank you all for your time and participation today. It was great having you. Take care and see you next time. Goodbye.
Thank you. And thank you very much, Julia, for all your support.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.